Okay, so here's a little demo that I put together to show basically the performance that you get when a peer is trying to hit a server to search for files, and what happens when those searches take a long time and the peers that want make the requests sort of get ahead of it, and how can that be relieved by multi-threading on the server side. So what I've done is down here at the bottom I have a slider that actually simulates the amount of time and seconds that it takes to respond to a request for a search, because the searches go very quickly obviously normally. And then I've also got a way to increase or decrease the number of threads that are running. So I can go up to 3, 4, 5, 6 threads at a time. We're going to just start with one so we can kind of see what the baseline looks like. And I'm going to set this down to some pretty quick time, like 0.04. And on my device here, I'm going to actually tell it to do, I can sit here and I can tap up or down and tell it what the frequency of requests it's going to be per thread. So it'll be 10 requests a second here. And we're also going to use just one thread right now. So if I start that, we'll see what happens is over here it's getting close to almost 10 requests a second. And here we can see we're receiving at about 10 requests a second, how much our total request count is. We'll run for 15 seconds. At the end of 15 seconds, it'll stop. And we see that we actually received at 10 a second 150 requests, and we had 3 in the background. We had 3 that got backed up. The buffer of requests was only backed up by 3, and that was the maximum. So we can say, well, what if we increase the time on this? So the time actually, what if it went up to like 50.15 seconds for every request? So we would now expect that the requests are going to back up more quickly, right? So since it's 0.15, notice on our end, we're only on a single thread able to get about 6.4 requests a second. That's about as fast as we can process them. And over here, though, this guy is just firing away those requests. And so what's happening is the buffer is building here where it hasn't gotten the result of its request yet. And so what I'm monitoring here is every message that goes out from here to the server has a unique ID. And when the result comes back, it's mapped against that unique ID. And so I know how long the requests, I know how many are still pending at any point in time. And so now we could say, well, what would happen if we go up to 2 threads? So if we go to 2, we should expect that 55 to get better. So if I do this and I hit start, we'll see that now it should be responding. Now it's really getting almost back up to 10 responses per second, which is almost identical to what we're firing at. And the maximum buffers at this point has only gotten to about 5. And of course, we could imagine that if we doubled the we could go over here and double the number of threads to maybe 2, or even, why don't we go to 3. So now we should be getting 30 requests a second. And so I'm going to clear our numbers here, and we'll just leave everything the same. We know that the threads aren't going to keep up, but when we hit start, now we see what happens is we should end up with 15, so we should end up with 450 requests when we're done. So we can see our max buffer is really building up here, and you could imagine in a load balancing situation, if we could detect that, we would want to back off on the queries on the client if we could. And but right now it's just feeding through. We've stopped making requests. The requests that are in the buffer are bleeding down, and we're eventually going to get to, let's see if it gets them all, and it does. It gets to 450. So let's up this now. We could imagine if we go to 3 or 4 threads, now we should be able to probably keep up, right? So let's go ahead and clear and start, and we're going to hit this one more time. And so we're getting close. Now it's processing almost 25 requests per second, but we're delivering at about 30. So 4 threads was still not enough to manage all of that, right? But we definitely have a lower. Okay, my Reflections app crashed, which is unfortunate. So I just want to repeat this last one video here, or demo. So essentially what we're doing is we're running 3 threads over here on the left doing 10 times a second. We've got about 0.15 of delay in each thread to actually respond, and we have 4 threads running on the server. And we'll note that we were about 26 requests per second that we could handle with the 4 threads, which makes sense given the math, but we were still delivering at 29 requests per second here. So obviously we had about 74 requests back up. That was our worst case. So obviously if we go to a 5th thread, we should see now, we should be able to probably handle them all. So if I go there, I'm going to clear, and we're going to start this one more time. We're going to see that we're hitting 29, and we look at the average requests being handled by the server are up close to 30, and that's looking good. And notice that our max buffer requests are really at 11, so we've handled those requests really quickly, and it is a great example of multi-threading when each thread is going to be busy, so you have multiple threads able to handle the load.